The end came faster than anyone imagined. When the Xilari Empire attacked, humanity never stood a chance. The first wave arrived in the form of darkened skies, thousands of warships descending like locusts, blotting out the sun over major cities. Orbital defense stations fired everything they had, lighting up the heavens with streaks of plasma and railgun bursts. The Xilari never slowed. In less than a week, Earth's fleets were annihilated. The Terran High Command sent distress signals across the stars, pleading for aid from their so-called allies. The Galactic Concord ignored them. Humanity had long been seen as an upstart species, one that had expanded too aggressively and made too many enemies. When the Xilari came, the galaxy washed, but no one intervened. Darius Vex had been there, watching the fall firsthand from the bridge of the TDS Revenant, his battlecruiser caught in a desperate retreat from Mars. He had fought the Xilari before, skirmishes along the frontier, border disputes that had cost lives but never escalated to full war. This wasn't war. This was extermination. He had screamed into the comms for reinforcements as the skies over Earth burned, but all he received was static, until the last transmission from Terran High Command came through, broadcasted from their final bunker deep beneath New Geneva. Earth is lost. Do not return. If humanity is to survive, we must become something else. If you can hear this, run. The signal cut out. Then came the final blow. The Xilari glassed the planet. Darius watched, helpless, as the great cities of Earth, London, Shanghai, New York, Moscow, vanished beneath waves of fire. The orbital bombardment struck with mathematical precision, boiling oceans and turning continents into smoldering wastelands. The screams of billions echoed across the emergency distress channels, then went silent. In that moment, something inside Darius broke. The man he had once been, loyal soldier, honorable commander, died in the fires of Earth's last stand, and something far darker took his place. "Turn us around," he ordered, his voice ice-cold. The bridge crew of the Revenant hesitated. "Sir, we barely escaped the battle over Mars. We have less than 6 ships left. There's nothing we can." Vex drew his sidearm and shot the officer mid-sentence. The body hit the floor. The others snapped to attention. "Turn us around." No one argued. As Earth burned behind them, the remaining Terran warships vanished into deep space. Humanity was scattered, hunted, broken, but Darius Vex was not dead. And as he stared into the void, one thought consumed him. They think they've won. They think they've ended us. But they have no idea what they've just created. I will show them. I will show them what it means to fear humanity. Darius Vex did not mourn. Mourning was for the dead. He was still breathing, and as long as that remained true, he would make the Xilari suffer. In the months after Earth's fall, humanity's remnants scattered like ashes in the wind. Some fled to neutral systems, hoping for mercy that would never come. Others hid among the underworld syndicates, carving out miserable existences in the lawless corners of the galaxy. Vex had no interest in hiding. He was building. From the shadows of the Proxima Drift, a dead zone on no official star charts, Vex and his surviving officers turned 6 warships into an armada of ghosts. The TDS Revenant became their flagship, repaired and refitted with stolen Xilari tech. The crippled cruisers and frigates they had escaped with were overhauled, stripped of every non-essential system to increase speed and stealth. They raided old scrapyards, salvaged wrecks from long-forgotten wars, and created something new. Warships that ran dark, could appear and disappear without warning, and struck with surgical precision. Their first mission was not for revenge, but for survival. A Xilari supply convoy moved through the Trian Nebula, carrying vital fuel and raw materials to a forward base. Their escort was light. 3 Corvette-class gunships, barely a threat to a real fleet. They never saw the attack coming. The Ghost Fleet emerged from the nebula like specters, launching electronic warfare pulses that blinded the enemy sensors. Within seconds, the Revenant and her sister ships unleashed a volley of kinetic lances, slug throwers designed to pierce even the Auxiliary's strongest hulls. The corvettes crumpled under the assault, their wreckage drifting lifelessly through the void. The freighters tried to flee. The Ghost Fleet cut them down. No distress calls. No survivors. A clean kill. Vex stood on the bridge as the enemy ships were stripped of supplies. His crew worked with brutal efficiency, dragging cargo holds full of weapons, rations, and fuel into the hangars of their starving warships. One of his officers, Lieutenant Vale, approached him cautiously. "Sir, we found prisoners aboard the lead freighter, mostly human laborers." Vex barely acknowledged her. "And?" Vale hesitated. "They're asking to join us. Some were engineers, others just want revenge." Vex's first instinct was to dismiss them. He needed soldiers, not desperate survivors who could barely hold a weapon. But then again, bodies were bodies. He turned toward Vale. "Put them to work. If they can fight, they fight. If they can't, they learn." Vale nodded, but she didn't leave. There was something else. "We also intercepted a transmission before the freighters went dark. The Auxiliary don't know who hit them, but they know something's out here. They're sending a scouting force to investigate." Vex exhaled slowly. Let them come. The Auxiliary thought humanity was dead. They were about to learn otherwise. The Auxiliary came faster than expected. 2 weeks after the raid on the Trion Nebula, Auxiliary Hunter Squadron, 3 battleships and a dozen escorts, dropped into the Proxima Drift, scanning for signs of the Ghost Fleet. They didn't come for negotiations. They came to exterminate whatever remained of humanity. They found nothing but silence. Vex had prepared for this. The Ghost Fleet was long gone, their hidden shipyards abandoned, their stolen fuel cells depleted. His forces were running on fumes, but that didn't matter. He had no intention of running. From the dark side of Tartarus 9, a barren moon orbiting a dead world, the Ghost Fleet waited, powered down, their heat signatures masked by the planet's electromagnetic storms. The Auxiliary warships moved cautiously, scanning the surface, searching for life. Vex smirked. They weren't searching for life. They were searching for prey. And they had just found the wrong predator. Vex let them enter low orbit before giving the order. Now, a ripple spread through the void. Stealth fields dropped. Weapons roared to life. The Ghost Fleet descended like a pack of wolves. From the surface of Tartarus 9, hidden missile silos erupted, sending high-yield warheads screaming toward the Auxiliary ships. 2 escorts vanished in the first volley, their hulls shattered. The battleships, caught off guard, scrambled to raise shields and return fire, but the Ghost Fleet was already in their midst. The TDS Revenant led the charge, its railguns tearing through enemy armor with pinpoint precision. The Auxiliary weren't used to this kind of fight. They were conquerors, not warriors. They'd fought wars of overwhelming force, not tactical ambushes, and Vex knew exactly how to break them. One by one, the Auxiliary ships fell into chaos. Their captains screamed orders, but their comms were jammed. Their engines failed, crippled by precision strikes. Their escape routes were cut off. Then Vex gave the order that made even his own officers hesitate. Board them. The Ghost Fleet's assault teams launched in waves, breaching the shattered hulls of Auxiliary warships with ruthless efficiency. What followed was not a battle. It was a massacre. Human warriors, clad in stolen Auxiliary armor, hunted their former oppressors through burning corridors. The Auxiliary, for all their strength, were unprepared for close-quarters combat. The Ashen Legion, made up of former slaves, fugitives, and men and women who had lost everything, tore them apart. By the time the last shot was fired, the Auxiliary fleet was gone. The Ghost Fleet did not take prisoners. Standing on the bloodied bridge of a captured battleship, Vex surveyed the destruction. This was only the beginning. He activated the ship's comms, broadcasting a single message across every auxiliary channel. Humanity is not dead. We are the fire that will burn your empire to ash. And then, with a cold smile, he gave the final order. Blast their colonies. The fires of vengeance spread. Vex's order was carried out with ruthless precision. The auxiliary colony worlds, once filled with sprawling hive cities, towering bioforges, and vast industrial complexes, became graves. The Ghost Fleet struck without warning, bombarding planetary defenses before deploying ground teams to finish the job. No mercy, no hesitation, no survivors. Entire hatcheries were torched, ensuring no future generations would rise. Auxiliary civilians, those who had once overseen human slaves, those who had laughed as Earth burned, now begged for their lives. Vex gave them none. The galaxy watched in horror. What had started as a desperate human resistance had evolved into something else entirely. An extermination campaign. But for Vex, it wasn't enough. He had always known that to win, humanity needed more than just a fleet. It needed an empire, something stronger, more unified than the Terran Republic had ever been. The weak had been wiped out. Now only the strong remained. He stood before his assembled forces, battle-hardened veterans, former slaves turned executioners, warriors who had torn victory from the jaws of oblivion. And he spoke the words that changed the course of history. No more running, no more waiting, no more praying for the mercy of those who abandoned us. He stepped forward, his voice like iron. Earth is gone. The Republic is dead, but humanity. He gestured to the burning remains of an auxiliary stronghold behind him. Humanity endures, and we will take our place among the stars, not as victims. He turned, locking eyes with his officers, his soldiers, the billions watching across the conquered colonies. But as rulers, he placed a hand upon his chest, upon the sigil of the Ghost Fleet, the emblem of a blackened, shattered Earth, wreathed in fire. I take upon myself the weight of our fallen. I bear the sins of our suffering, and I will lead us to victory, no matter the cost. He knelt before his assembled warriors, not as a soldier, not as a rebel, but as something greater. If you will have me, I will be your king. Silence. Then, a roar of approval. A chant, taken up first by his officers, then by his soldiers, then by the thousands who had gathered to witness history unfold. Hail the Black King. The message was sent across the stars. To the scattered remnants of humanity, it was a beacon of hope. To the galactic powers who had once dismissed them, it was a warning. To the auxiliary, it was a death sentence. Vex had not just built an empire. He had forged a kingdom of vengeance. And the war was far from over. The Black King had risen. With the auxiliary colonies burning in the wake of humanity's vengeance, the galaxy could no longer ignore the return of their long-forgotten enemy. The Ghost Fleet had grown into a true war machine, absorbing conquered factories, repurposing alien technology, and forging something stronger than the Terran Republic had ever been. No more diplomacy, no more negotiations, only war. Vex's empire, the Ashen Throne, spread its influence across the lawless frontier. Outcasts, pirates, former mercenaries, and deserters from 100 different species swore fealty to the Black King, drawn by the promise of power, revenge, and something even rarer, purpose. But war was not won with firepower alone. Vex needed a message, a statement so undeniable that the galaxy would tremble at humanity's rebirth. And he knew exactly where to strike. The slaughter at Vordak Prime. Vordak Prime was one of the auxiliary's oldest strongholds, a fortress world, its surface covered in towering citadels, its orbital defenses rivaling those of entire fleets. It was a symbol of auxiliary dominance. Vex would turn it into a tomb. The battle began before the auxiliary even knew they were under attack. Ghost Fleet operatives infiltrated Vordak Prime weeks in advance, sabotaging planetary shields, corrupting supply lines, and cutting off communications. When the attack came, it was merciless. Phase 1. Electronic warfare scrambled every auxiliary sensor and defense system. Their long-range cannons fell silent. Their targeting systems went blind. Phase 2. The Ghost Fleet emerged from the void, its blackened hulls absorbing light like specters, striking before the auxiliary could even react. The first wave crippled orbital command, leaving the planet's surface vulnerable. Phase 3. The ground assault. Vex himself led the charge. Armored, relentless, unstoppable. The Ashen Legion, his elite warriors, hardened by vengeance, descended like harbingers of doom. They did not fight for survival. They fought for conquest. Silari warlords threw millions of soldiers at them. It didn't matter. The Ashen Legion fought like men who had already died once and had nothing left to fear. For 3 days, Vordak Prime burned. By the time the battle was over, the planet was unrecognizable. The mighty citadels of the auxiliary lay in ruins. Their leaders, those who had ordered Earth's destruction, were dragged before Vex, their once proud expressions replaced with horror. He gave them a choice: kneel before the blackened crown, or die. Some bent the knee, swearing loyalty to the Ashen Throne. The rest were executed. The galaxy watched in fear. The auxiliary, for the first time in their history, knew true terror. Humanity had not only survived, they were coming for everything. The Black War had begun. Vordak Prime was the first to fall, but it would not be the last. Like a slow-burning fire spreading through a dry forest, the Ashen Throne's war machine moved relentlessly, consuming auxiliary strongholds, shipyards, and colonies one by one. It was not just war, it was retribution. Vex led his empire with ruthless precision. Every captured world became a factory, every conquered fleet was repurposed, and every surviving enemy had a choice: serve or be erased. The auxiliary, once so certain of their superiority, began to fracture under the weight of the onslaught. Their military leaders, so used to crushing lesser species, found themselves outmatched. They had never fought an enemy like this, one that learned from every battle, one that adapted and refused to break. And worse, for every human life they had taken, the Ashen Throne took 100 in return. The shattering of Kormal. Kormal was the beating heart of the auxiliary war effort, a fortress world surrounded by shipyards capable of producing entire fleets within weeks. The auxiliary believed it impregnable. Vex proved them wrong. The battle began with a deception. The Ghost Fleet faked a retreat, drawing the auxiliary's armada away from the planet in pursuit. But when the auxiliary fleet engaged, they realized their mistake. The ships they were chasing were unmanned decoys, rigged with EMP charges. By the time the auxiliary realized the trap, it was too late. The real attack came from within. Thousands of hidden operatives, former human slaves, infiltrators, and sympathizers, rose up across Kormal, sabotaging defenses and opening the planetary gates. The moment the shield grid flickered, the Ghost Fleet struck, descending upon the planet like wraiths. Precision orbital strikes tore through the shipyards. The planet's atmosphere was set ablaze with the wreckage of auxiliary warships falling from orbit. Then came the ground assault. The Ashen Legion stormed the capital, unstoppable, pushing through the final defenses like an oncoming storm. By the time Vex himself walked into the Grand Hall of Kormal, the auxiliary high command was already broken. Their warlords, once mighty conquerors, now trembled before the Black King. Vex looked down at the architects of Earth's destruction. He could have killed them. He should have killed them, but death was too merciful. Instead, he forced them to kneel. Before the entire galaxy, the auxiliary high command, the rulers of the empire that had once burned humanity to ash, were made to swear fealty to the blackened crown. The auxiliary empire was no more, and in its place, something new was rising. Something greater. Something far more terrifying. The Ashen Throne was now the dominant power in the galaxy. But Vex was not finished. Not yet. Because he knew the truth. The The real war had yet to begin. The Exilari Empire was gone, but the war was not over. Vex knew the truth. The Exilari had never been the true masters of the galaxy. They had been servants. For centuries, the Exilari had ruled as enforcers of a greater power, the Vakar Dominion, an ancient civilization that lurked in the shadows, manipulating empires like pieces on a galactic chessboard. The Vakar had allowed the Exilari to conquer, to enslave, to burn entire species into extinction, because it served their design. And when Earth fell, they had watched. Vex had long suspected it. His spies had uncovered whispers of the Dominion's influence, of how the Exilari had taken orders from unseen masters. But now, with the Exilari High Command kneeling before him, he had proof. The Vakar had orchestrated humanity's downfall, and Vex would drag them into the light before he burned them to ash. The Siege of the Silent Pantheon. The Vakar did not have an empire of warships or armies. They ruled from the shadows, from a hidden citadel known as the Silent Pantheon, an artificial world suspended in the void between galaxies. Few knew its location. Fewer still had seen it and lived. But Vex did not need to find them. He made them come to him. He took the Exilari High Command surrender and broadcast it across the entire galactic network. The Vakar, for all their secrecy, could not allow such an insult to stand. And just as he planned, they responded. From the abyss, the Silent Fleet arrived. Vakar warships, blacker than the void itself, materialized in numbers never seen before. Their weapons were not kinetic, not energy-based, but something far worse. They warped reality itself, collapsing ships into singularities, or turning entire battalions to dust with a whisper. The Ashen Throne had fought against fleets, against empires. Now, they fought against gods. But gods could bleed. The fall of the Silent Fleet. The battle that followed shook the galaxy. The Vakar unleashed horrors from forgotten ages, machines that devoured worlds, entities that consumed minds, ships that phased through reality itself. But Vex and his warriors had fought through hell itself to survive. They adapted. The Ghost Fleet's ships, armed with stolen Exilari and Dominion technology, disrupted the Vakar's weapons. The Ashen Legion, immune to fear, boarded their warships and butchered the false gods in their own halls. And Vex led the charge into the Silent Pantheon itself. There, at the heart of the Dominion, he faced the Vakar Council, ancient beings who had ruled for millennia. They pleaded. They bargained. Vex cut them down. As the Silent Pantheon burned, the Vakar Dominion crumbled. The gods were dead, and humanity now stood alone at the top. The gods were dead. The Silent Pantheon, once the seat of ultimate power, drifted lifeless in the void. The Vakar, architects of countless genocides, were no more. Their warships, once thought invincible, lay broken. Their dominion, which had manipulated the galaxy from the shadows, was erased in a single night. And at the heart of the carnage stood Vex, the Black King. Humanity had not just avenged itself. It had become the reckoning, the dawn of the Ashen Throne. With the Exilari and Vakar annihilated, there was no one left to challenge humanity. The Ashen Throne was now the single most dominant power in the galaxy. Worlds that had once laughed at Earth's destruction now knelt before the Blackened crown. Some did so out of fear, others out of respect. But all knew one truth. This was a new era. The Ashen Throne did not simply rule. It rebuilt. From the ruins of fallen empires, humanity forged something greater. A new order, one built on strength and unity. The lessons of the past were not forgotten. There would be no weakness, no complacency. Vex issued his first and only decree as ruler of the known galaxy. Never again. Never again would humanity kneel. Never again would it beg for its place among the stars. It would take what was rightfully its own. The final coronation. On the scorched remains of the Silent Pantheon, Vex stood before billions, humans, former slaves, warriors, and leaders from conquered worlds. He had led them from the brink of extinction. He had torn down the chains of oppression. And now they crowned him. The Blackened crown, forged from the remnants of earth, tempered in the fires of war, was placed upon his head. A new empire had risen. The Ashen Throne ruled over the stars. Vex, once a nameless survivor, was now the absolute sovereign of the greatest empire in galactic history. Some called him a liberator. Others called him a tyrant. But none dared to defy him. For the first time in history, humanity was unchallenged. The final words of the Black King. As he gazed upon the stars, now his to command, Vex spoke. "We were born in fire, forged in pain, shaped by war." He turned, eyes burning with something deeper than mere ambition. "We are not the lost children of a fallen world. We are not the remnants of a dying race." He raised a gauntleted fist, his voice echoing across the stars. "We are the masters of this galaxy." The assembled legions roared their approval. "And we will never fall again." Thus began the age of ash and fire. Thus began the reign of the Black King.